Welcome to the Beyond Physio Podcast, where we help you move, excel, and inspire others on your journey to your next level with knowledge and advice from experts and testimonials from our like-minded community. Hello, everyone out there. Anthony, I'm really excited to be interviewing today as one of our new associates at our Wycliffe Lake and Montclair office in New Jersey. It's really been a pleasure getting to know you, and I really want the world to know who you are, and especially all of our clients and all of our subscribers who listen to this episode. So, Anthony, welcome to this show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So, Anthony, I want everyone to know about your background as far as, number one, why are we lifting these weights? No, just kidding. I want to know about your athletic background, how you even consider physical therapy as a profession for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is in baseball and ice hockey. Those are the two sports I've played my whole life. I have gotten obsessed with golf. That's been my post-hockey, post-baseball retirement sport. I think most people go that way. So that's been my new addiction is golf. And I still continue to play ice hockey and stuff, but I started from a young age skating before I could even walk. I was like obsessed with the New York Rangers.
The Rangers?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was sitting on my dad's lap. I would go nuts. He's like, we got to get him on skates. So from the minute I've been walking, I've been skating as well. I'm probably more comfortable on the ice than I am walking around. But yeah, the new addiction has been golf. But yeah, I got into physical therapy. I was super interested in the medical field when I was younger. Just had no idea what physical therapy was until I ended up as a patient in there from a couple injuries I had playing hockey. And my old babysitter's husband, he owned a business. He was a fantastic physical therapist. He worked on me. He got me back to playing hockey. We formed a great relationship. Everyone in the office looked so happy all the time, and it was just a great environment. I was obsessed with lifting and working out in high school, and I could see the connection between the medical side of things, which is what I was always interested in, and the fitness side of things. So it was just a field that immediately caught my attention, and I immediately switched from applying as an engineer to college to applying for I loved math and science. I just didn't know what I wanted to do in the medical field, but I knew I wanted to do something. So it was like biomedical engineering was the original track, and then I saw PT and I'm like, that's my future.
And I'm a smart dude, man. I mean, math and science, that's pretty cool.
maybe when I was 17, the math. I don't know any math anymore besides the biomechanics part of PT. But
that's great. You know, I'm so glad you mentioned something, and I'm hoping that for any listeners who are either physical therapists or who have kids who are maybe entering the field of physical therapy, it's been lately getting a bad rap. And as someone like myself who's been basically an OG, I've been in this for over 25 years now, for crying out loud. I have seen a lot of great transformation. And it's unfortunate that a lot of our colleagues aren't in those environments where it's nurturing, where the people are happy and where people are happy doing what they love to do. And I think that's why all of us went to physical therapy to begin with. What's happened now is that you have unfortunately, a lot of corporate places, and it's a business model. When you go to an in-network place, it's typically, 3 to 5 patients an hour. It's there's no breaks often. The culture is often just about bottom line, and that is one way to do physical therapy. It's not very conducive for a lot of people who wanted to enter the field because they wanted to impact lives. But I think that someone like you who has found this passion for both physical therapy and fitness and has also wanted to merge them into one way of treating, I think these are the kinds of doctors that we have in the future that are really going to be the happiest as you are yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think from day one, when I walked in, the first day for my affiliation, I walked in, the first thing I noticed was that, all right, this is a gym. This is what I want.
I love that.
I saw the gym in the back. I'm like, this is exactly what I'm looking for in a PT. If I was to go to myself as a patient, this is exactly what I'd want to be. I'd want to be on the table, and then I want to be on the turf doing exactly what the model that we have at Next Level is. I think it's extremely conducive to seeing results, whether it's the manual stuff we're able to do for 30 minutes on the table, or whether it's all the exercise we got going on in the turf. I think that to me was what brought me to this company. I feel like it gives me the best opportunity to make a change in that patient as soon as possible. Whereas if I'm seeing maybe 3 to 5 patients on the table, I have 10 minutes to not only assess, but also create a change with my hands. And then I'm just sending you off to do God knows what exercise on the turf if I'm not able to watch. But yeah, I think that's what drove me to Next Level for sure.
Great. I Yeah, I answered that during an interview as well. So,
Yeah.
very consistent there, Anthony. So tell us about, let's go back to hockey and baseball. Let's go to hockey first, actually, Anthony. As far as the kinds of injuries that hockey players often suffer from, are there like maybe the top three injuries that they often come in with when you've seen them? That's where you have maybe experienced
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah. So I think I've experienced basically every possible hockey injury on the planet. So I do have that aspect of it where I've been on the other side. And so I understand like everyone, especially in the field of hockey, wants to play through all these injuries. And I get that. I've done the same thing. I would say probably the top three. One is concussion. I feel like everyone experiences a concussion playing hockey, whether it's just crashing into the boards, falling the wrong way, something like that. Usually you have to deal with something like that. And a lot of times people don't know how to diagnose that concussion. It goes undiagnosed, and then you could experience another hit, and that second hit is usually what puts you out. So I think getting more awareness into diagnosing a concussion on site, whether it's the parents, the coaches, or the player themselves, they should know the signs. So I think that's one huge thing in hockey.
Sure.
Another would be your shoulder. Like you have shoulders, the boards are just not forgiving. They are at the higher level. If you watch, if someone crashes into the boards, they flop back and forth and super forgiving. Not at the lower levels.
Oh man!
So you are just running into a wall. Whether it's the ice that's somehow harder than any floor you have ever experienced in your life, or the boards just not being forgiving, shoulders are big for hockey. So I see a lot of AC separations, which I have myself, that I've dealt with both sides. Not fun. Broken clavicles, unfortunately, and just like a lot of impingement problems coming forward like that. So a lot of shoulders. And lastly would probably be hip. The position where you start where if you go to any power skating clinic, they tell you to start kind of feet out, and they want you pushing out into like abduction, extension. That's like hip labral tear central. So do that motion 7,000 times a week, multiply that by however long you're a hockey player for. Long-standing hip labral tears that go undiagnosed, I think, would be probably the third.
That's interesting. And so now, when I think about hockey, I also think about kind of conditioning that you have to have. What is conditioning like for a hockey player, and how's it different from a baseball player, for example?
Yeah, so it's a lot different in the sense that the shifts are 40 seconds to a minute. So that's using a completely different aerobic system, as opposed to the fact you also need to be able to maintain that for 2 to 3 hours, because there's 3 20-minute periods. You're probably on the ice for somewhere around 20 to 30 minutes. So you have to be able to not only have that power, that speed, to get to the point where you're able to beat someone to a puck or get to the net quickly, but you also need to maintain that throughout that extended period of time. So it's working on multiple energy systems, which makes it much more difficult than a sport that is just like soccer, where it's just you're straight trying to maintain 11 miles worth of running and the same aerobic capacity the whole time. Hockey is like you got to go in between energy systems. So a lot of it is training power motions in the lower extremity, especially a lot of core training. But you also need to do endurance. So I like to use the bike. I think it's a little more conducive to that hockey motion, as opposed to where running is a little bit different. But so I would do a lot of bike training, a lot of plyometrics, box jumps, stuff like that, a lot of sprints, and just incorporating both into your program was always something that was difficult, but it was interesting to me.
As far as what kids could do, you think at this age, whether they're U18 or whether they're in sort of that upper age group as they're aging out, what are some things that you wish you had known back in the day that might have prevented some of the injuries maybe you had?
Absolutely. So I think a lot of fitness trainers and kids, they can go on Instagram and look up whatever training video they want to see in terms of strengthening. I think everyone knows how to strengthen at this point. Sport specific is a little out there. You got to be more creative with that. But what everyone's missing in hockey is the mobility training. No one does the mobility that's required. You need so much hip abduction, external rotation, extension that a lot of people don't have. And you're kind of in a bent over position that whole time, which is just conducive to bad posture stuff, back pain, low back pain, mid back pain. A lot of that stuff is something I dealt with personally, and like all of my teammates would complain of and ask me to fix. And I'm like, as I got older into PT school, I played a couple years in PT school, so I was like the team trainer. I was trying to do both.
The rehab coach.
Yeah, exactly. So I think a lot of the mobility stuff in the hips is something that's super important that maybe won't be seen with a normal fitness instructor, but you would see more on the physical therapy side. So I think that's something that I would love to get out there in the world, is the importance of mobility and then training on top of that into new ranges.
Got it. Now, the great one.
Yes.
We all know about the great one. So the great one, on one interview I was reading, was talking about how when he was growing up in Canada, that they would play hockey for a season and then they play lacrosse in the fall or the summertime. And I think his frustration that, by the way, if you don't know who the great one is, Wayne Gretzky, back in the day. But he often got frustrated seeing what hockey has become.
Yeah.
And Shane Willis, on one of our other interviews, who was back in the day, I think the only time the Canes won the Stanley Cup was in the 80s.
Yes.
That team. So Shane Willis and I were talking about how youth hockey has changed over the decades. And it's kind of tricky because at the one side, you want to have these kids grow up into the sport and create a feeding group for professionals in the future and college and whatnot. On the other hand, if these kids are doing the same things all year round, we're looking at the same repetitive stress that we see in a lot of youth sports these days, whether it be soccer, whether it be baseball, all these other sports, where placing the body, the growing skeleton, under one type of stress all year long can be dangerous. What are your thoughts on that now as a professional, Anthony?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think it's the same concept with baseball. Like, pitchers need some time off that they're not getting anymore. Pitchers are going in overhead throwing how many times during the season, and then you're going to have them do it in the off season to strengthen and get better. It's just, now you're seeing UCL tears at 12 years old. People are getting Tommy John in middle school, high school.
Crazy.
It's insane. And you see Justin Verlander actually had a great interview about that, how it's a pandemic in the U.S.
Yeah.
Now the UCL tears in the major leagues,
crazy.
and everyone thinks, oh, it's the pitch clock. It's not the pitch clock in the major leagues. It's the fact that these kids are getting groomed from 11 years old how to throw curveballs, how to throw 75 pitches every day, twice a week, and then go home and go to a pitching coach and then try and strengthen. And then on the off season, there's no time off. There's no secondary sport. And I think if you're going back to hockey, I think this sport is something you can't recreate. It's not something you can do on land. You can recreate certain motions. It's not really something that you can recreate motion-wise as skating. I'm all for skating all year. I think if you've ever played hockey, you could be in the best shape of your life aerobically. You can be the best shape physically. You can go on the ice and feel like you're in the worst shape of your life. It's just something you can't recreate. You have to be skating. But in terms of playing year-round, it's not great. I think we should be encouraging younger kids from a young age to do multiple sports. The USA Hockey's big thing is physical literacy. So what that means is being able to be conducive to stresses in all different environments. So the big thing that we do as coaches is when we have camps and stuff in the summer, we try and have them do other sports. So we'll have them be playing kickball at lunch or soccer or something that's going to get them to become more athletic, not just on the ice. Because I see a lot of kids nowadays, they're the best hockey player you've ever seen. You give them a baseball bat, they'll miss the ball.
That's really
funny.
funny.
They play soccer, they have no foot-eye coordination whatsoever. So it's like, I think playing sports from a young age, multiple sports, is something that my parents instilled in me. I played golf, I played basketball, I played ice hockey, I played baseball, and then I settled upon the two sports that I carried through. But I think playing multiple sports is absolutely super important for physical literacy.
That's great. Let's talk about baseball now. As far as what position you played and what other kinds of things that will use the same sort of approach. What will you try to tell parents who have young baseball players what they can do to protect themselves and get stronger over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was younger, I was a shortstop, I was a center fielder, I was a right fielder, depending on what the team needed. I was always that utility guy. I caught for a little bit because we didn't have a catcher. So my father told me, like, when I was young, he's like, the way you're going to get on a team is you're going to provide what no one else can. So be good at everything, work at everything. So I would take ground balls every day. I'd go take fly balls every day, batting practice, all that stuff. He was a great mentor. He got me where I am today. I wouldn't be here without him. But he got me all the good advice. So whatever team I was on, I was like, what's the hole? Is it second baseman? Is it a catcher? So by the time I was on the big field, there's always middle infielders on every team. Everyone wants to play second. Everyone wants to play short. So I was like, all right, let's scratch that. Let's go to the outfield. I was always fast, so I love center field. And then I got a really good arm, so they put me in right field so I can throw out the guys at third. So that was fun. I love the outfield too. It's just the best vibes, catching
Yeah.
fly balls and stuff like that. We had the most fun at practice. Yeah.
As far as like what you might tell parents to help their kids to maybe reduce the risk of injury
Yeah.
at a young age, what do you think you might say?
I'm all for getting lessons with a pitching coach for form and stuff like that, and going to do batting practice all the time. That's great. But what I hate seeing is someone who will only overhead throw nonstop, and they'll throw weighted balls, and then they'll go see the pitching coach, and then they'll throw more balls there, and then they'll go play for their travel team, and then they'll go play for their
Rec
high school team,
high
and then they'll
school
go play
team,
little league. You're on
everything.
like 3 teams, and those coaches aren't in communication with how many pitches you're throwing, and these kids don't care. They're just like, I want to pitch.
Yeah.
So I think most positions besides the pitcher position, there's no real risk of super injury. But if you're pitching for 3 different teams, I think that's where you got to draw it back a little bit. And as a parent, you need to keep track of how many pitches are being thrown. Maybe bring that to someone like a pitching coach who would have more insight into what the volume should be at this age.
Right.
I think that's the most important thing, probably to avoid at least shoulder, elbow injury in this younger population.
That's good. And now post professionally, now you come a ways from, you're coaching hockey on the side, which is great.
Yes.
We're seeing basketball players as well. Now that you've kind of like really embraced golf as the thing for you, and I love golf myself. I just don't have the time out there like a lot of people. You're at that age yet, know. But I really enjoy it. I think what I have found to be the problem with a lot of golfers that we do have seen over the years, is that it's a one-direction sport, more or less. You're usually the way you're hitting the ball, you're not going to switch hands as you would in other kinds of sports. And so there's a lot of repetitive stress in one direction in particular. And we've seen a lot of people with back issues, obviously issues at the elbow. A lot of it comes from because they're not handling their mechanics very well down the chain, hip, knee issues. What are some of the things that you might have picked up over the years, Anthony, as someone who specializes in golf, and some things that maybe you can share with our community on things that they might not be aware of as to why they're having different kinds of injuries?
Yeah, so I think that's very true, that you're rotating how many times to one side, whether you're going to the driving range before hitting 50 balls, and then you're on the course, you're swinging another 70 to 100 times, depending on how good you are at the sport.
Exactly.
But it's a lot of rotation one way. So if you're a righty, you're just always rotating left. A lot of hip impingement on one side. You're required to have the range of motion.
Yeah.
Rotation is huge both ways, whether it's from the spine, whether it's from the hips. A lot of core control necessary. So there's a lot of deficits lacking there that people try to make up with different positions that put you at huge risk for low back pain. I'm sure you've left the golf course at some point and you're like, oof, my back doesn't feel good. And a lot of times it's a mobility issue.
Yeah.
So if you're lacking mobility in the thoracic spine, it's going to come from the lumbar spine, most likely. And that lumbar spine is not meant to rotate. It's meant to flex, extend. So when it rotates, a lot of stress comes from there. It's also the same thing with the hip. A lot of people are lacking hip internal rotation. If you can't internally rotate, you can't load up into your backswing. You got to get it from somewhere else.
Absolutely.
It's either going to be from the lumbar spine, your shoulder is going to fly out, your elbow is going to fly out. And not only is it going to make you miss the ball, but it's also going to put you at risk for low back pain and injury, which is something that I think we should all see someone who could diagnose that those swing mechanics before playing, 30 times in the summer, put you at risk for injury. So being TPI certified, we're able to diagnose your swing, but also do a physical screen and see how those connect. So I would come in, we would put you through like 15 exercises and then maybe some other stuff that I see, just to see what the physical limitations are. And then we'll see if that correlates with some of your swing characteristics that might put you at risk for injury. So that's something that I think is going to be super valuable for the community.
Yeah, I agree too. And I think being TPI certified really helps us to combine our knowledge of biomechanics and physical therapy, along with how to make sure that this player stays safe and effective and explosive in their game, with the most minimal risk to injury as they get out there.
And I think it's for a golfer that is trying to become a competitive golfer. If you look at these pros, they have so many people on staff. Like the analogy that TPI Titleist uses is that the golfer is the car, the golf coach is the driver, and then the medical and fitness professional are like the pit crew. So we're going to put you back together. So that's the analogy they use.
I love that.
And it's the closest way to have what these pros have in their back pocket in terms of they're getting worked out, massage therapy, athletic training, fitness training every
All the
day.
modalities.
All that stuff, like everything they need for recovery. It's impossible to replicate that. But
Yeah.
if you have a good team, whether it's a fitness guy, a medical trainer, or PT, and on top of your golf coach, they can all work together, especially when you speak the same language, being TPI certified. It's just that continuity of care that allows you to get something as close to what those pros have as possible and improve your performance on the course without putting you at risk for injury.
Like that. And Anthony, and I'm really glad that that's an area that we are specializing in now, especially with you taking charge of that. So I'm excited to see how we can really make an impact on the lives of golfers in the communities, along with our hockey players and our baseball players. But you seem to have it all, man. You guys are filling some holes there. So.
I just love the rotational athletes.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to rotate.
Yeah, it's awesome. Now, as far as like when you came in as a student, you were looking for certain things. You seem to have seen what we're about, and this seemed to be the right place for you.
Yep.
Having this hybrid model where we do both fitness and physical therapy. What has it been like now since you've been working with us officially as an associate?
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's been even better? Do you feel like we've been meeting expectations?
Yeah, everything has been fantastic. Dr. Alex was my clinical instructor for 12 weeks. He is like the smartest person. He's like a textbook, I swear. He helped me study for the exam, pass it. He's great.
Yeah.
But in terms of like the exercises he prescribed, unlike anything you're going to see in a run-of-the-mill clinic, like it's all stuff on the turf that is actual strength and conditioning, which I think was my big thing coming into PT. I'm like, I need to combine strength and conditioning with the stuff we're going to do on the table, because a lot of facilities you'll get one or the other. You'll either come in, you'll get really good exercise, but kind of not the best manual therapy, and then other clinics you're going to get maybe good manual therapy for as long as a PT is able to see you, and then just run-of-the-mill exercises because that PT might not be able to supervise it.
Right.
When from the first day, I was watching how these sessions went, and it was like 30 minutes of manual therapy or whatever the patient needs on the table, and then all of the exercises are being directly watched by the physical therapist. So your form is got to be perfect every time, which I think is super important too. When people train with bad form and no one's there to correct them, you're either not going to get the muscle you're trying to work on, or you're going to put yourself at risk for injury. So I think this model is something that is super conducive to change and lasting change in the body.
Yeah. Now, for other people looking for employment at physical therapy offices, I think some people are okay with the 3 to 5 patients in our model.
Yeah.
Because they're a very big financial component of that. What are the things that you would want to tell someone who might be want to work with us about, like what it's like working at Next Level?
So for the first part, as a new clinician, it's great to see things you do cause a change. If you have 30 minutes to figure out the assessment part of it and also assess manually, but also make a change. So I think to me, that's super important, is I'm going to see wins from the start of my career, which is something you might not be able to do if you only have 5 to 10 minutes to work with somebody. There's no way as a new clinician, you're going to get that experience of seeing results and seeing why the results happen. Whereas in an environment like this, it's very conducive to my growth as a clinician. So if something works, I can test, I can retest, see if there's a change after whatever technique I just did. And if not, I can just go to the next technique because I have time to do that. But in another place where you're seeing 5 patients an hour, you have 7 minutes with the patient, you only have time to really do one thing. And then they come back in the next time, that's your next opportunity to see if that worked. So I think there's almost no way you can lose in this model, because you have the time to put in the work, and you also, the mentorship is incredible too. I think that's a huge thing too for me, is if I have a question, I have 3 super experienced doctors 5 feet from me, and then how many more down south that I could also call up and see in the meetings later today. So I think that's huge for me too, is the environment that we have as the doctors in Woodcliff Lake and Montclair. It's just such a good dynamic. You can bounce off of each other. Everyone's got a different background. Like Dr. Alex has a CrossFit background. So as far as sterics goes, everything I ask goes to him. I'm like, what do you think? What do you think is good? Where do you think we can go now? So I think that's huge for me too.
Right. Well. That's awesome. Yeah. And what do you think about, as far as the culture has been, how's it been for you as far as like that goes on a daily basis?
Oh, it's the best. It's like you just walk in and you're hanging out, you're talking about stuff, and then you're also the workday flies by. I'm having fun the whole time. Whether
That's
it's
awesome.
the patients we're seeing, like I get inspired by half the patients all the time by what they're doing. Like they come in, I just ran a marathon yesterday for fun. I'm like, that's awesome. So there's just a lot of inspirational stories from the patients, but also the culture within the doctors and everyone that's hired there, even the aides, the front desks, everyone is incredible. We work together as a team and we see results that way.
Yeah. And Anthony, we're pretty picky as a culture, and I think it's part of the reason why we've had some challenges finding the right people for what we do. And I would say after the first time we met, what I really enjoyed was that you just seemed like a driver. Yeah. You're the kind of guy who wants to go at it. You're a team player. Even beyond that, you're really hungry, and I hope you stay hungry. And I think that if you continue to do that, you're going to be extremely successful professionally, and you'll be really, really satisfied and fulfilled as you go along in the next, God willing, 20, 30 years, right?
Hopefully, yeah. That's the idea.
Yeah, so I'm really happy to have you in our team. I really appreciate the time for you to carve out some time for us to share with our audience and share with our clients the kind of people that we love to have on our team. And really wishing you the best success.
Thank you. Happy to start. I'm very excited for the future with you guys.
Awesome.
It was great talking to you.
Yes.
Thanks so much for tuning into today's episode. It really does mean a lot to us. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, or comment if you got at least one or two helpful insights or takeaways to help you get to your next level.